your main event, Charles Oliveira defeats Justin Gaethje inside of a round. An incredible win streak, an incredible finish. I mean, really what he is doing is quite special. I want to get to the broader details in just a second. But Aaron, if I had to ask you just right up front, your major takeaway from what Charles Oliveira did to Justin Gaethje, what would be the number one takeaway?
Well, Charles Oliveira is just a brilliant mixed martial artist. I asked him backstage after the fight. I said, was part of the strategy that you would have time to recover if Justin Gaethje... I was asking all these questions about the X's and O's. If Justin Gaethje knocks you down or hurts you, you can go to your back. You know he's not going to join you there. Does it give you more creative license on the feet if Justin Gaethje is not going to be able to take you down or not going to try to take you down? Are you going to be able to throw a lot of funky stuff on the feet to try to throw him off? And he basically looked at me and said, no, the strategy was just to beat Justin Gaethje. Like, he just comes up with the stuff on the fly. And if you would have gone into the fight with that being your strategy, you would have the same success. But he's just become so good at adapting on the fly to figuring out what his opponents are going to throw at him and finding a way to capitalize on that. And to find these little openings and to feel out the rhythm of his opponents. And that's why I thought Justin Gaethje was going to be the worst matchup for him in the division. Is because Justin Gaethje doesn't give you the time to figure that stuff out. But Charles Oliveira has become so sharp that he was able to figure it out in 2 minutes.
AB, should we start believing that this is now a trap that Do Bronx is setting for the rest of the lightweight division, which is, go ahead, touch me to the head in the first round. You know, I may even take a seat. I may even, surprise you by hiding the fact that I'm attempting to pull guard on you because I want you to chase me down there. Do you think that this stretch of all killer, no filler stoppages against the action heroes of our lightweight current generation is going to create a change in how people approach him?
Well, what are you going to do to this guy? Like, what's your strategy going to be against Charles Oliveira? Because the closest thing that I can think of is how Paul Felder beat him. You get him on the ground and you just try to stay out of trouble. But right now, he's gotten so much better since that fight. I mean, how long's Paul Felder been retired for? He's been retired for a year. That's how long ago that fight in Detroit was. I just don't know what you do to beat this guy. You know, Islam Makhachev is going to be an interesting matchup because he's very technically sound with his takedowns. He's got a lot of submissions of his own that he can utilize. But do you really want to try to take Charles Oliveira down? Because if he snatches your neck, how are you getting out? I mean, this guy is just so good everywhere now that I just don't know what strategy you would implement to try to beat this guy. I thought Gaethje was the toughest matchup for him left in the division, and he dispatched Gaethje like nobody else has in the past.
You know, I'll say this. Two things that stood out to me. Danny Segura had a tweet last night that went viral because I thought it was just so smart. He had sort of noted that, like, if you look at, okay, for example, when Chandler hurt Oliveira, he was legitimately hurt. Like, he was on the ground scrambling because he had his senses rocked. But you look at a couple of the times, especially like that second knockdown that Gaethje had, Charles elected to go to his back. When he gets rocked and then goes to his back, a lot of the opponents, Paul Felder notwithstanding, don't even want to follow. Danny Segura had described it as the guy is the only guy in MMA who has his own boxing 10-second count before he has to get off the mat. He will elect to just go to his back knowing either A, he has the advantage there, or B, no one's going to follow that. Contrast that with when he dropped someone like Gaethje. He went right to his back. I mean, he snatched it up with a quickness. So he has this weird ability, and folks have compared him to Fabricio Verdum. I actually think it's a pretty good comparison. The other thing I would say is if you watch, like we talk about, Oliveira's striking has come a long way, and it has, 100%. We already knew his ground game was good. Fellas, his clinch is dynamite, and it's really the thing that binds everything together because when, for example, he was getting hit with the leg kicks from Gaethje, he would then reach out and then grab the neck or the head of Gaethje to pull him in close. And then so Gaethje would have to avoid. But then when he pulled away, he would get hit with the clean shots on the way out. It's this way of combining everything to make all the different parts of his game work so well. And so when guys try to avoid it, either the ground or they're breaking off in the clinch, he catches them with offense all the time. To answer the question you had, Aaron, I mean, who the hell knows? But my best guess is Paul Felder's success was not an accident because you can't resist all the stuff that Oliveira's throwing at you. You have to kind of go into it. But, of course, easier said than done.
Yeah, I just think he's gotten so much better since then, too, especially his striking. And even his wrestling has gotten way better. If you watch against Tony Ferguson, he was taking him down with ease. And that second knockdown, like that was a Bennett Brower knockdown when he, I got a knockdown against Charles Oliveira. It wasn't a knockdown. He got basically teeped to the stomach, said, you know what, I need some time to recover. laid down on his back because he knows that Justin Gaethje is not going to go there. Like you said, and like Danny Segura said, it's basically a 10 count because he knows that nobody's going to follow him to the ground, especially not a Justin Gaethje who I think he knew that he was setting a trap there. Justin Gaethje smartly walked away and tried to get him up as soon as possible, which was the right move. So I just don't know how there's a formula to beat this guy. And I think Islam Makhachev is going to be a really unique matchup if that's what they do next, because Makhachev is just so good with his grappling and his top control and knowing what to do on the ground to avoid trouble from the school of Khabib, the school of Abdulmanap. And that's what I'm really eager to see. I think the big problem, though, for Islam, and why I think that he should face Beneil Dariush first, in my opinion, if I'm going to be the guidance for Islam Makhachev, who I'm sure thinks he's good enough to hang with Charles Oliveira at this point in time, he hasn't fought anybody close to as good as Charles Oliveira. And it could be a real rude awakening if he doesn't face some sort of pushback before he gets in there with Oliveira. And I think Beneil Dariush is a perfect matchup for that reason.
You're right. And the thing that is so dangerous about Oliveira that we just illustrated collectively is that he doesn't need to give you the appearance that he's in control of the fight on his own terms to actually be in control of the fight on his own terms. And that's something, Islam, who's been seemingly going downhill since the beginning, just plowing through people and controlling it. That's why you want to see that matchup. I got a lot of complaints and arguments as to why we won't see that for a while. But looking back to Oliveira here, I mean, Luke and I talked immediately after the fight. I mean, it's just ridiculous how he's able to focus within chaos, how he's able to put away the losing the title on the scales, all of that, and make Gaethje look no different than what he did to Poirier before that, Chandler before that. But AB, you know me a little bit. I love me some Justin Gaethje. And like you, I thought he had the best chance to do this. But unlike you, I stood on the rooftops and said, damn, this guy's underrated as shit. How come you guys don't realize he's about to be the next UFC lightweight champion? I mean, look, I got no problem eating crow, AB, but I'm wondering how deep I should invest in that crow. Is the glaring weakness of a lack of a competent submission game not only the thing that's holding back Gaethje from fulfilling his potential, but is it actually shit against these elites? I mean, Khabib took him from, you might be kicking my leg off, to you're tapped out within seconds. And of course, we saw Gaethje bringing back the quitter narrative just to see him tap again. And look, who's not going to tap there against Oliveira? But I missed it. I missed that there was this gap in Gaethje's game that now twice in a row at the super elite level it got exposed. I'm going to eat the crow here publicly, but is it as bad as it looks? Justin Gaethje's BJJ against these super elites.
Well, it's hard to really tell, right? Because he was rocked by Oliveira first. It's not like Oliveira just took him down. He got rocked, right? And then you've got a guy like Charles Oliveira on your back. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Justin Gaethje or anybody in the world. If Charles Oliveira has your neck, you're done. Like, as soon as that fight got to the ground, as soon as he knocked Justin Gaethje down, I was in the back and I said, it's done. And people just looked at me and I'm like, it's done. Like, he's going to find something here because that's what Charles Oliveira does. To me, in my opinion, he's the most opportunistic fighter we've ever seen in mixed martial arts. Nobody is able to find an opening like this guy and capitalize. I mean, hey, the proof's in the pudding. Look at the amount of finishes this guy has. Next finish will be his 20th finish in the UFC. It's a record already, but he'll be the first one to ever hit 20. This guy is just able to snatch things just seemingly out of nowhere. But if you give him an inch, he's going to take a foot. That's just how Charles Oliveira is.
Why is there? So this was I had been sleeping, AB, on Oliveira up until this fight. So this is the first fight where I was like, okay, I think Oliveira can really win this because I've been so wrong about him so many times. I finally had a wake-up call. Now, my theory has always been that because we've seen him in lesser states when he was kind of flaky as a younger athlete, missing weight. Now, granted, it was a 145. This one, I don't even know what to say about it anymore. But certainly at 145, there was no doubt there he wasn't. It was a difficult cut, and he wasn't managing it properly, and maybe he shouldn't have been there for a long time. And to your point, Paul Felder and a million the Max Holloway fights, we'd seen him kind of just crumble before. Now we see him hurt but resilient. To what do you attribute that change? Because we can talk about all of the changes to his offense, but that's a little something different.
Yeah, dude, I have no idea. I just don't know how he's gotten to be so resilient. Like you said, that's the perfect word for it, because he seems to get tagged in every fight, and it just seems to make him stronger. It's like the Glover Teixeira school, where you think you've got this guy hurt, and he's able to just completely turn the table on you. And I don't know where it came from, honestly, because I've been the biggest Charles Oliveira mark ever. Like I hate to say that because we're not supposed to be fans of fighters, but I've been saying for 8 to 10 years that this guy's the most fun guy to watch in MMA. You know, I think he was going to ascend to this level? I don't think anybody did, and I can't say to you with a straight face that I thought that he'd be an elite champion one day. But in terms of just absolute fun, to me, him and Justin Gaethje were actually my top two, and that's why I loved this fight so much. They were my top two fighters to watch from an entertainment standpoint. And I mean, we saw what happened. It's instant fireworks, very easily, I thought, the best fight of the night. Unfortunately, they didn't get the bonus because Charles missed weight, but I just think that he's become so well-rounded, so elite everywhere. His wrestling has evolved so much. His striking has evolved so much. He was outstriking Justin Gaethje. Now, I think that part of that is because Gaethje had to worry about the takedowns and worry about the submission game, and that opened things up. But he was outstriking. I think he was clearly outstriking him, too. I know he got tagged, but, man, Charles Oliveira has just become such a complete mixed martial artist, and it's been such a joy to watch.